Hello, and welcome to Mindshift Media, the channel dedicated to helping you navigate the beautiful and sometimes challenging journey of life. I'm your host, Teodor. Have you ever felt stuck? Like there's an invisible weight holding you back, no matter how hard you try to move forward? Perhaps it's a past mistake, a decision you regret, a moment where you feel you let yourself or someone else down. We often talk about forgiving others, about the liberation that comes with letting go of resentment towards someone who has wronged us. But what about when the person we can't seem to forgive is ourselves? Today, we're diving deep into a topic that's often whispered about, but rarely explored in its full significance. The unspoken key to freedom: forgiving yourself. This isn't about forgetting what happened or making excuses. It's about a profound act of self-compassion that is absolutely crucial if you truly want to move forward, to grow, and to live a lighter, more authentic life. Stay with me, because by the end of this episode, you'll have a clearer understanding of why self-forgiveness is so vital, and some gentle, actionable steps to begin your own journey towards it. So, why is looking inward and offering ourselves that same grace we might extend to a friend so incredibly difficult? It's a question I've pondered a lot, both personally and in my work. Think of it like this. We're often our own harshest critics. We hold ourselves to incredibly high standards, sometimes impossibly high. When we inevitably fall short, because we're human after all, that inner critic can become relentless. It replays the mistake on a loop, magnifies our perceived flaws, and whispers words of shame and inadequacy. One major reason is societal conditioning. We're often taught from a young age about accountability and taking responsibility, which are important. But sometimes this message gets distorted into a belief that if we've done something wrong, we deserve to feel bad, perhaps indefinitely. The idea of letting ourselves off the hook can feel like we're not taking the transgression seriously enough, or that we're somehow being weak or irresponsible. Then there's the illusion of control. Sometimes punishing ourselves, replaying the scenario over and over, gives us a false sense of control. It's as if by constantly berating ourselves, we can somehow retroactively change the past, or ensure we never make a similar mistake again. But in reality, this self-flagellation doesn't change what happened. It just keeps us chained to it. It drains our energy, an energy that could be used for learning, growing, and making positive changes in the present. I remember a young professional I once coached. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah had made a significant error on a project at work. Objectively, it was fixable, and her manager, while direct, was understanding. But Sarah couldn't let it go. For months, she replayed the moment, berated her stupidity, and lived in constant fear of making another mistake. Her productivity plummeted, her anxiety soared, and her joy in her work, which she once loved, vanished. She was carrying this heavy backpack of self-blame, and it was exhausting her. She believed that by constantly reminding herself of her failure, she was being diligent. What she was actually doing was preventing herself from learning the real lessons and moving on with renewed confidence. Furthermore, our brains are wired with a negativity bias. We tend to remember and dwell on negative experiences more than positive ones. This was an evolutionary advantage for our ancestors. Remembering the dangerous animal or poisonous berry kept them alive. But in our modern world, this bias can mean that one mistake, one moment of poor judgment, can overshadow countless successes and positive qualities if we allow it to. And finally, there's the fear of vulnerability. Forgiving ourselves means acknowledging our imperfections, our fallibility. It means accepting that we are capable of causing harm, even unintentionally, to ourselves or others. This can be a deeply uncomfortable realization, It's often easier to stay in the "I'm a bad person" narrative than to confront the messy, complex truth of our shared humanity. So, we carry these burdens, the unmet expectations, the societal pressures, the illusion of control, the negativity bias, the fear of vulnerability, and they make the act of self-forgiveness feel like climbing a mountain. But I promise you, the view from the top, the freedom that awaits, is worth every step. Before we explore how to cultivate self-forgiveness, it's crucial to understand what it is and, just as importantly, what it isn't. There's often a lot of confusion around this, and these misunderstandings can become major roadblocks. Firstly, self-forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgetting implies wiping the slate clean as if the event never occurred. That's not realistic, and often, it's not healthy. Our past experiences, even the painful ones, contain valuable lessons. Forgetting them means we risk repeating the same patterns. Self-forgiveness, on the other hand, involves remembering the event, acknowledging its impact, but choosing to release the self-punishment and negative emotions attached to it. It's about changing our relationship with the memory, not erasing the memory itself. Think of a scar. Forgetting would be pretending the wound never happened. Forgiveness is acknowledging the wound, seeing the scar, but no longer feeling the acute pain of the initial injury. The scar tells a story of healing. Secondly, self-forgiveness is not excusing bad behavior. This is a big one. Many people resist forgiving themselves because they think it means saying, "Oh, it wasn't a big deal," or "it was okay that I did that." Absolutely not. Self-forgiveness doesn't minimize the impact of our actions, especially if they hurt others. It doesn't absolve us of responsibility. In fact, true self-forgiveness often requires a very clear-eyed acceptance of our responsibility. It means saying, "Yes, I did that. It was not okay. It caused harm, or it went against my values. And now I choose to learn from it and release myself from the cycle of self-blame so I can do better." Excusing is about avoiding responsibility. Forgiving is about taking responsibility and then choosing a path of growth and healing. Imagine someone who, in a moment of anger, said hurtful things to a loved one. Forgetting would be to pretend the argument never happened. Excusing might sound like, "Well, they provoked me," or "I was just stressed." Self-forgiveness, however, would involve acknowledging, "I said things that were hurtful, and that was not okay. I take responsibility for my words and their impact. I need to understand why I reacted that way and learn to manage my anger better. And now I will work on forgiving myself for that lapse so I can repair the relationship and not live in constant shame." So, if it's not forgetting and it's not excusing, what is it? Self-forgiveness is an act of profound self-compassion. It's about extending the same kindness, understanding, and empathy to ourselves that we would ideally offer to a good friend who made a similar mistake. It's recognizing our shared humanity, the fact that all human beings are imperfect and make mistakes. It's about acknowledging our pain, our regret, our shame, and choosing to move through those feelings rather than getting stuck in them. It's a conscious decision to stop the internal battle, to lay down the weapons of self-criticism and self-punishment. It's about creating space for healing and growth. It's about recognizing your inherent worth, which isn't diminished by your mistakes. This distinction is vital. When we confuse self-forgiveness with forgetting or excusing, we create an internal conflict that makes it almost impossible to move forward. But when we understand it as an act of compassionate accountability, the path begins to clear. We're about to dive into the practical steps of self-forgiveness. This can be deep work, so take a breath. Maybe grab a sip of water. When we return, we'll walk through a gentle path to releasing that self-punishment. You're listening to Mindshift Media. Welcome back to Mindshift Media. We've talked about why self-forgiveness is so challenging and clarified what it truly means. Now, let's explore how to cultivate it. This isn't a quick fix, and it's a deeply personal journey, but these steps can provide a compassionate framework. Step 1. Acknowledging the past action without harsh judgment. The first step, and often the hardest, is to clearly and honestly acknowledge what happened, the specific action, behavior, or decision you're struggling to forgive yourself for. This sounds simple, but we often dance around the truth. We minimize it, we rationalize it, or we catastrophize it. The goal here is to state the facts as neutrally as possible, without immediately layering on the heavy blanket of shame and self-criticism. For example, instead of "I'm such an idiot, I completely ruined that presentation, and now everyone thinks I'm incompetent," try acknowledging, "I made several errors during the presentation and I felt embarrassed." See the difference? The first is a judgment about your character. The second is an observation of an action and a feeling. Write it down if that helps. I betrayed my friend's trust by sharing their secret. I procrastinated on an important task, which led to a negative outcome. I wasn't there for someone when they needed me. The key here is without harsh judgment. This is not about re-traumatizing yourself. It's about facing the reality of the situation with a degree of emotional detachment, as if you were an objective observer. This doesn't mean you won't feel discomfort or regret. Those feelings are natural. But try to observe them without letting them spiral into a full-blown self-attack. Think of it like a doctor diagnosing an illness. The doctor needs to clearly identify the ailment before they can prescribe a treatment. They don't, or shouldn't, berate the patient for getting sick. They focus on understanding the condition. In the same way, you are simply identifying the what. What action or inaction is causing you pain? It might be helpful to remember that this action is something you did, not who you are. Separating your behavior from your inherent worth is a crucial part of this step. We all do things we regret. It's part of the human experience. The acknowledgement is the first step towards taking conscious responsibility, not for beating yourself up, but for paving the way for healing. Take your time with this. It's okay if it feels uncomfortable. Be gentle with yourself as you uncover and name the thing you're holding on to. Step 2. Understanding the context. You then, not you now. Once you've acknowledged the action, the next step is to try and understand the context in which it occurred. This is not about making excuses, remember. It's about cultivating empathy for your past self. Ask yourself, what was going on in my life at that time? What were my stress levels? What was my emotional state? What knowledge or skills did I have then versus what I have now? What were my beliefs or fears at that point? Often, when we look back with the wisdom and perspective we have today, we judge our past selves very harshly. But the you who made that decision or took that action didn't have the benefit of hindsight. You were operating with the information, resources, emotional capacity, and level of awareness you possessed at that specific moment. Perhaps you were younger and less experienced. Perhaps you were under immense pressure, feeling scared, overwhelmed, or insecure. Maybe you were operating from old wounds or unhelpful patterns you hadn't yet recognized. Let's go back to Sarah, who made the work mistake. When she explored the context, she remembered she'd been sleeping poorly for weeks due to a family illness. She was also new to that particular type of task and hadn't received full training. This didn't make the error disappear, but it helped her see her past self with a little more compassion. She wasn't stupid. She was a human being under strain, doing the best she could with what she had. This step requires a willingness to be honest about your vulnerabilities at the time. It's about saying, Given who I was then and the circumstances I was in, I can see why I might have made that choice, even if I wouldn't make it today. This helps to soften the self-blame. You are not condoning the action, but you are understanding the human being who performed it. This understanding is a bridge to self-compassion. It helps to dismantle the narrative that you are inherently flawed or bad, and instead frames the mistake as a product of specific circumstances and your level of development at that time. You are a constantly evolving being. The you of then is not the you of now. Self-forgiveness isn't just an internal process, especially if your actions affected others. Sometimes, a crucial part of forgiving ourselves involves taking responsibility outwardly by making amends. This isn't always possible or appropriate, but it's an important avenue to explore. Making amends can take many forms. It might mean a sincere apology to someone you hurt, an apology that doesn't make excuses but clearly acknowledges the harm done and expresses genuine regret. For example, "I'm truly sorry for sharing your secret. It was a betrayal of your trust, and I understand if I hurt you. I value our friendship, and I will work to rebuild that trust." It might involve trying to repair the damage caused, if that's feasible. If you broke something, offer to fix or replace it. If your inaction caused a problem, see if there's anything you can do now to help mitigate the consequences. Sometimes the person you harmed is no longer in your life, or it might be harmful to them or to you to make direct contact. In these cases, making amends can be more symbolic. You could write a letter you don't send, expressing your regret and what you've learned. You could do something kind for someone else, as a way of putting positive energy back into the world to counterbalance the past harm. Or you could make a commitment to behave differently in the future. This is a powerful form of amends, both to others and to yourself. The key is that the act of making amends should come from a place of sincerity, not from a desire to simply alleviate your own guilt. It's about acknowledging the interconnectedness of our actions and taking steps to restore a sense of integrity. When we do our best to right our wrongs, it becomes easier to forgive ourselves because we know we've done what we could to take responsibility and learn from the experience. It's important to also manage your expectations. The other person may or may not forgive you, and that's their right. The purpose of making amends in the context of self-forgiveness is about your integrity and your process of taking responsibility, regardless of the outcome. It's about aligning your actions with your values. Step 4. Consciously choosing to release self-punishment. This is the pivotal moment, the conscious decision to let go. After acknowledging the action, understanding the context, and making amends where possible, you arrive at a point where you can choose to release the ongoing self-punishment. This is an active choice, a deliberate act of self-liberation. It means recognizing that you have learned what you needed to learn from the experience. Continuing to beat yourself up serves no further purpose. It only keeps you tethered to the past and drains your vital energy. How do you do this? It can be helpful to create a small ritual or a symbolic act. Some people find it powerful to write down the self-critical thoughts or the incident itself on a piece of paper, and then safely burn it or tear it up, visualizing the release of that burden. Others might say a specific affirmation like, "I acknowledge my past actions and the lessons I've learned. I choose to release the burden of self-blame and move forward with compassion and wisdom." Or, "I forgive myself for the specific action. I am worthy of peace." This isn't a one-time event where you suddenly feel 100% free. It's more like a practice. Old thoughts and feelings of guilt or shame might resurface, especially initially. When they do, gently remind yourself, "I've already processed this. I've learned from this. I am choosing to release this." Don't engage with the old punishing thoughts. Just acknowledge them and let them pass, like clouds in the sky. Self-compassion is your greatest ally here. Treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a dear friend who was trying to move on from a mistake. Would you tell them to keep punishing themselves indefinitely? Or would you encourage them to be gentle, to learn, and to focus on the future? This conscious release is about reclaiming your present moment and your future. It's about understanding that your past mistakes do not have to define your entire life. You are more than your worst moments. By choosing to release self-punishment, you are choosing to live more fully, with more peace and more capacity for joy and contribution. It's a profound act of self-love. These steps are a guide, a gentle invitation. Remember to be patient with yourself. This journey is yours, and it unfolds at its own pace. So, we've walked through acknowledging the past, understanding the context, making amends, and consciously choosing to release self-punishment. This journey of self-forgiveness isn't about reaching a final destination where you never feel a twinge of regret again. Life is more nuanced than that. Instead, it's about developing a new relationship with yourself, one that is rooted in compassion, understanding, and a commitment to growth. Living lighter means accepting your humanity. It means recognizing that making mistakes is an inevitable part of learning and evolving. Imagine if a toddler, learning to walk, berated themselves harshly every time they stumbled and fell. They'd probably give up. But they don't. They instinctively get up and try again, perhaps a little wobbly, but always moving forward. We can learn a lot from that innocent persistence and self-acceptance. Self-forgiveness, at its core, is about fostering deep self-compassion. Dr. Kristin Neff, a leading researcher in self-compassion, identifies three key components. 1. Self-kindness versus self-judgment. Treating ourselves with warmth and understanding when we suffer, fail, or feel inadequate, rather than lashing out with criticism. 2. Common humanity versus isolation. Recognizing that suffering and personal inadequacy are part of the shared human experience, something that we all go through rather than being something that happens to me alone. When you realize you're not alone in making mistakes, the shame often lessens. 3. Mindfulness versus over-identification. Taking a balanced approach to our negative emotions so that feelings are neither suppressed nor exaggerated. It's about observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment, rather than being swept away by them. Practicing these elements daily can transform your inner landscape. When that critical inner voice pipes up, and it will, it's persistent, you can meet it with, "I hear you, but I choose to be kind to myself." When you feel isolated by a mistake, remind yourself, everyone struggles. This is part of being human. And when you're overwhelmed by regret, take a mindful breath and observe the feeling without letting it define you. This journey of self-forgiveness allows you to reclaim so much energy. The energy that was once consumed by self-criticism, shame, and rumination can now be channeled into pursuing your goals, nurturing your relationships, and contributing your unique gifts to the world. It allows you to be more present, more authentic, and ultimately more joyful. Think of someone you admire for their resilience, their kindness, their wisdom. Chances are they've made their share of mistakes. Their strength doesn't come from a flawless past, but from their ability to learn, to integrate their experiences, and to continue moving forward with an open heart. A heart that has, undoubtedly, learned to forgive itself along the way. This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about progress. It's about choosing, again and again, to treat yourself with the same grace and understanding you'd offer to someone you truly care about. Because you, too, are worthy of that care. You are worthy of your own forgiveness. So, as we come to the close of this episode of Mindshift Media, let's recap the essence of our journey today. We've explored why forgiving ourselves can be so profoundly difficult. Those layers of self-criticism, societal expectation, and the illusion that self-punishment somehow serves us. We've distinguished true self-forgiveness, an act of compassionate accountability, from merely forgetting or excusing our actions. And most importantly, we've walked through those gentle yet powerful steps. 1. Acknowledging the past action with honesty, but without harsh self-judgment. 2. Understanding the context of your past self with empathy and recognizing you did the best you could with what you knew then. 3. Making amends where needed and possible as an act of integrity. 4. And finally, consciously choosing to release self-punishment, embracing self-compassion as a daily practice. The truth is, the unspoken key to so much of our personal freedom lies within our own capacity to forgive ourselves. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. It's the path to shedding that invisible weight, to quieting the inner critic, and to stepping more fully into the life that's waiting for you. What's one small step you can take today towards self-forgiveness? Perhaps it's just acknowledging that you deserve it. That's a powerful start. Thank you for joining me on Mindshift Media. I hope this conversation has offered you some valuable insights and a little more lightness. If you found this episode helpful, please do like this video, subscribe to Mindshift Media for more content on mental well-being and personal growth, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future episodes. We'd also love to hear your thoughts or experiences with self-forgiveness in the comments below. Sharing can be a powerful part of the journey. Until next time, be kind to yourself and remember that your journey of growth is ongoing and you're doing better than you think. I'm Teodor, and this has been Mindshift Media.